tonight does hold significance in the NBA and really Americana and American history. Where were you? Think about it, friends. Today's date is
June 17th.
June 17, 2024. Where were you 30 years ago tonight? We'll let you think about it for a second. Okay. 30 years ago tonight. Can you remember? I'll tell you where I was. I was in my apartment at the corner of Comstock and Ostrom.
Yes.
In Syracuse, New York.
Fantastic.
And I was watching Game 5 of the NBA Finals. The Knicks and the Rockets, Pat Riley and Rudy Tomjanovich coaching those teams. I was watching it on NBC. Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Big deal, you say. Do you know what else happened during Game 5 of the NBA Finals that evening?
Man, just unbelievable.
A certain
buckets.
former
Hakeem.
Pro Bowl Hall of Fame running back who coincidentally played most of his NFL games about 2 hours away from the apartment in which I was sitting, 3 hours away, 2.5, in Buffalo, New York. O.J. Simpson was in an American-made white Ford SUV, a Bronco, and he was in a low-speed police chase on the 405 freeway and others in Los Angeles. The 405, which is quite literally walking distance from where we sit right now. I guarantee you he drove by this studio.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I bet he did. Actually, he probably was on Imperial Highway or the 105 at one point. I don't remember the exact route. I had never been to California at that point in my life.
Nope.
Had never stepped foot in the state of California. Certainly didn't live here. Didn't know it. Didn't know that 5-6 years later, I would be living in an apartment on Saltaire Avenue, 3 blocks from the scene of the crime, 1 block from Bundy. Didn't know that 6 years later I would be living right there, but I would be. And to paint the picture for you, this is before social media, kids. Before
cell phones, really.
Email was
everywhere.
just a thing only a year or two earlier, 3-4 years earlier. I remember I got to Syracuse in 1992.
You had email then?
And we got our first email addresses. They were syr.edu email addresses, but you could only send email internally, like on campus. You couldn't send email outside of campus. So email was just a thing. Cell phones were not a thing yet. Beepers were still a thing, but only drug dealers had them. Okay, so digital communication was not a thing. Also, not a thing, the New York Knicks winning championships. They hadn't won one since 73, still haven't. So the Knicks, and again, I am in the state of New York, the Knicks being in the finals is the only story. Nobody cares about OJ. And I know that it would be a story that would dominate American headlines, not only for weeks and months and subsequent years through 2 trials, but still to this day, with his recent passing, dominates American headlines. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered, where I was, my roommate, diehard Knicks fan, where I was in the state of New York, was the Knicks. Was the Knicks potentially winning a championship for the first time in 21 years. Every major television network in America cut to a low-speed chase on the 405 freeway, including NBC during Game 5 of the NBA Finals. NBC4 New York cut away in New York from Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
Also, earlier that day was the Rangers parade for winning the cup.
Yes. So imagine, if you will. I was not in the city.
What a New York sports day.
I was not in the city. I was in central New York. But imagine, if you will, that you're in a bar in Midtown Manhattan. or you're on Long Island, or you're in Queens, or you're uptown, wherever you are, you're in Jersey. You're watching Patrick Ewing and the Knicks try to bring a championship to New York. And they cut away from Game 5 of the NBA Finals. There's no streaming. You can't get the score on Twitter.
There's like 20 channels back then.
There's no other. They're not going to throw the game on Peacock or flip it over to CNBC.
USA.
Or USA.
Telemundo.
There's no other place to watch the game. It's the Knicks. And you're in New York. And they're not on. Because a guy that used to play for the Bills.
And work at NBC.
True. Is in a low-speed chase on the 405 in L.A. The Knicks are in the finals. And you can't watch them. Now, they would eventually get to an offset, right?
Yep.
OJ and the white Bronco are in the corner. The game is on the other side of the screen.
They then flipped it, and the game was in the small box.
And then they flipped it.
It was unbelievable.
Okay. Kids today cannot fathom. I'm being an old man here. I still have a 4 in front of my age, but you cannot fathom, younger audience, what that was like 30 years ago tonight. Now, at the same time, all of America, including Knicks fans, they will admit, did grasp the significance of what this was and what this would become. I don't know if any of us actually in the moment knew what it would become, right?
No.
I don't know if anyone truly knew what it would become, but we realized OJ is the star of stars, and oh my, this is something. Yeah. Like, I mean, I remember sitting at my college radio station, WAER, and somebody walked in and was like, I bet OJ did it, man. You see this? Like, yeah. I remember that conversation. And this is the only story in America. But in this moment, like, no one knew what was happening with this. And it's Game 5 of the NBA Finals with the Knicks and the Rockets. Like, and they turned it off. And there was no other place to watch it. Like, it was absurd.
If you haven't seen it, I encourage everyone to watch it. The 30 for 30, just simply titled June 17th, 1994. Mm-hmm. The things that were going on in sports that day is unbelievable. There's no narrator. They let the news coverage kind of be the narrator. I mean, they take you, like Bob Costas talking to his producers about how they're going to cover this and what they're going to do. The U.S. Open was that day. Arnold Palmer played in his final U.S. Open that day. The Women's World Cup was in the United States. That was happening at the time. I mentioned the Ranger Parade happening in the Canyon of Heroes. The NBA Finals. Griffey home run chase.
It was tied 2-2, by the way.
All of it was going down. It was unbelievable. Sport day.
Knicks will go on to win that game. Lose the series. Regardless, it was one of the... Where were you?
I was at home in Maine. I just finished the 8th grade. A friend of mine who was a Knicks fan was having a sleepover, and we were so excited to watch the finals. And then just boom. Like, what is happening right now?
TJ?
I was in downtown Pittsburgh. I want to say I walked into a bar on Stanwyck Street in downtown Pittsburgh. Me and my roommate, John Krasinski, big New York fan, so he's hyped.
But the guy from The Office?
No, that's Sean. I guess they do have the same. I never thought
Not him? Okay.
Nah. John Krasinski out of Long Island, New York.
Strong Island where they got him wilding? Okay.
We walk in, look at the TV, like, yo, where's the game at? Because I had just gotten off of work, and they're like, somebody was like, OJ's running from the cops. And I'll never forget. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? So we watched it there for like an hour, got on the bus. I was living in the Oakland section of Pittsburgh, get back to my apartment, turn on the TV, and it's still going on. And we were like, this is unbelievable. And like you said, looking back, right, didn't really have cell phones like we do today for all the kids out there, didn't have social media, and yet the entire route of this chase, people had found out about it just through the local
news.
They got there. somehow knew the routes he was going. They went, like, I have a map right here that gives you exactly where he went, from the 405 to the 110 to the 5 to the 91. And they got up on bridges. They got on the side of the road with signs. So people had time to, like, go to like a Home Depot or go home and grab material to make a sign and then rush to the freeway to hold it up. And, you know, nowadays kids have these meetups that they organize through like Instagram and TikTok. You know what I mean? There was no such thing back then.
It's crazy.
How did people know where to go?
Also, the gravity of the situation where if you're watching the news coverage, I think at one point, I legitimately thought he was going to commit suicide.
That's what we were led to
live
believe.
on television, and we were going to witness this and be bystanders to it. It was insane. And OJ, I don't even know who we could compare to today. He was so famous.
That's a good question.
So
Chris.
incredibly famous.
Who
You have
is the
no
comp?
idea how ridiculously, insanely popular and well-liked this guy was.
I think you know the comp. It just hit me. Charles Barkley.
Whew.
Except here's
Former
the
great player who enjoyed a great career outside of the sport, is a pitch man for certain. I mean, I don't think
He's a
Barkley has
pitch man.
many
OJ was in
commercials.
movies.
as
The
OJ.
difference is OJ
No
was the
movies either.
actor.
Right.
OJ was not only the Hertz pitch man, he not only was the charming, lovable, attractive, handsome, like NBC sportscaster, right? That did everything.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't just do football, he did the wide world, like everything,
Olympic,
right?
everywhere.
And he was Nordberg
Yeah.
in Naked
Naked
Gun.
Gun, yep.
He was in all the Naked Gun movies. He was a comedy actor with Leslie Nielsen. And those, back in the day when people went to the movies,
Huge.
those were huge movies. Yeah. They weren't just throwaway, like, straight to streaming comedies because there was no streaming. Like, those were a big summer. That was a massive franchise. That's when you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 movies. Yeah. Now they obviously all got worse consecutive, but that was a big deal then.
Let's not forget First and 10. Remember that show?
Exactly. Yeah. So I got the route. Started Robert Kardashian's house, like up on the 405 or near Mulholland.
No, this is at noon, so people know.
Right.
Like, it starts at noon.
So then,
but no one knew he was gone. He was supposed to turn himself in that day.
Right.
And then didn't show.
Then eventually gets all the way down to the 405 into like Laguna Niguel.
Yeah. Ascension Cemetery.
Then turns back around and goes up the 5. Then cuts west on the 91.
No, this is between 7 and 7:30 at this point.
Then ends up back up the 405 and then back down the 405 and then across on the 10 to down, like all over Southern California. And yes, it's during Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
On a Friday in Los Angeles, driving around.
On a Friday. There will never be, before social media. Like, it's hard to put into words.
No, if this happens today, AC's driving the Bronco, OJ's in the back. He's going on Instagram Live.
It is. That's a great point.
Instagram Live.
But I also said this earlier.
It's on Instagram Live. It's on TikTok.
For sure.
It is being live streamed.
But if this happened now, would this be the biggest moment in like live Twitter history?
Yes. You brought that up earlier, and you hit the nail on the head. This would be because. Also, at that point, I don't think people really didn't think he was guilty. And I don't think you're really, one of you guys mentioned the gravity of the situation, right? I don't think you're really looking at it like that. I think people would have been having fun on Twitter with this, and then it hits you.
And
like,
it quickly would have spun the other way.
Yeah, 2 people really passed. But you're right. This would have been the biggest thing of all time on Twitter. And it would have been pretty amazing to read some of it. And just imagine all the footage that you would have had just from the freeway.
People on their,
Yeah.
People on their cell phones taping everything.
Which is the world we live in now.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.